It's pretty crazy because we've been in Australia. This is about a full year for me now. And I'm excited to be going home, but it feels very displaced, you know? Like, it's hard to believe this is all over here. But I'm very glad it's over in the sense that now we can really begin what I love to do, which is I have all the film in front of me, more or less, except for a lot of visual effects shots that are still going to be coming in, and getting it to be a whole movie.
Right.
You know, we've been
concentrate on.
Yeah, that's all I've got to focus on now. Dailies are over. I'll have Larry and Andy's attention 100%, and it's going to be great. From the very beginning of these movies, before we ever shot The Matrix, Larry and Andy had designed a trilogy, not knowing if they would ever get beyond the first movie, because they understand the economics of making movies, and they know that in order to complete a trilogy, the first movie has to be successful. So we never knew for sure that we were going to make Reloaded and Revolutions, but that was always the intent. I always tried very hard to see it as a 4-hour movie, because it's clear when you leave Reloaded and when you start Revolutions, you're in the same physical place. The movies were shot concurrently, so I had sort of a rough assembly of most of both movies within a month after we finished shooting. Luckily, we had extensive previs of the visual effects sections that were not shot, and so by using those in the cut, that served me very well. You wanted to see the rest of the editing room, right?
Behind the magic.
All right. So out here, Catherine, did you say hi?
Hello.
That's Catherine Chase, and
Hi.
Catherine's going to be on the movie the entire time. As Catherine's a first assistant, Dave is also a first assistant. His area is mostly working with the Avid. Catherine mostly works with the film. Now here we get two with one blow. Standing with Catherine right now are Allison and Jenny. Jenny's the second assistant editor. Allison's our apprentice. Allison was with me on the first Matrix. She was our projectionist.
What do? I help with dailies. I make leaders, which is what I'm doing now. And I code the film. Do you want to have a look?
What does that do?
It actually puts rubber numbers on the sprockets on the edge of the film. So when they come to post and they need to cut the film, they run off the code numbers.
At last.
When you shoot a conventional movie, you're shooting a big dialogue scene. Basically, the director ends up shooting a lot of coverage. You know, you shoot close-ups and two shots and over the shoulders, and you put all that together into a scene. When you're shooting something like a wire fight, the stuff is pretty tightly choreographed. And what you'll end up doing is maybe doing multiple cameras and a certain amount of overlapping action, meaning that the actor leaps through the air and lands a punch. So maybe the punch is overlapped. And then the next shot picks up, simulating the leap, jumping down and starting to punch and then going into the next stage of the fight. Your options in scenes like that are angles and overall pacing. The freeway scene is, I think at its heart, a conventional in-camera scene that's heavily uses visual effects to realize its vision, but at its heart, it's shot in camera. I mean, I don't see how as an editor you read this scene and you just sort of rub your hands together. The scene is 15 minutes long. It's just all about editing. The thing that's great about the way Andy and Larry shoot is almost every angle introduces new information. Reloaded is truly going to be the sum of a lot of small scenes. It's going to be very, very densely paced. It's going to be really fast. Although there are times we're really going to just sort of slow it down for these very, very difficult dialogue scenes. And to try to find that overall balance is going to be a lot of fun and really interesting. This is our visual effects division of editorial. Jody is the visual effects editor. Bridget is the assistant visual effects editor. Why don't you talk to these guys?
Basically, what we do is track and organize and manage all of the elements that they shoot on set. There are thousands and thousands. Once it comes here, Zach edits, and all the various elements that go along with the shot to composite it together go funnel through us. We scan it and send it on to the vendor. And
it's a really, really important job. It's a really big job because when I edit the scene, there's basically, I edit with what I call the hero element. And a lot of the stuff that's visual effects shots, they'll do, 8 or 10 passes in time. They'll do passes for backgrounds and passes for elements like smoke or atmosphere, and passes for lighting, and they'll do clean passes so that you can take something out of a frame. And so Jody works very carefully with the visual effects people across the hall to make sure they get everything they need. And she sits
No,
in.
he doesn't work carefully at all.
One of the things I really like about Revolutions is the fact that the first half of the movie is, at least by Matrix terms, a fairly conventional movie. And then the second half, once the siege starts, it's almost nonstop action. I tried very hard to keep the first half of the movie tense, because the whole movie is ultimately going to have a very tense vibe to it, right up till the very end. There are small things, like how often the so-called 180-degree rule gets broken, which I think probably most of the people who are watching this understand, but it simply means that if you have a circle and you've divided it in half, and the camera's on one side of that circle, on the next cut it should not cross that line to the second half, to the other half of that circle. So in the case of the Wachowski brothers, they have a certain very organic idea of how they're shooting things. And if that idea occasionally encompasses things like breaking the 180-degree rule, they've thought it through very carefully in advance.
You're empty. So are you.
If you notice, it tends to mostly get broken in the fight scenes. Because, and it's really, I'll tell you something, it's a simple approach to coverage. But once you've done it enough, then it can become an interesting bit of style, a bit of craft. When we made The Siege, I took the previses, I worked with them extensively, showed them to Larry and Andy, and we made extensive changes, both in the shots that ended up in the movies and the shots we deleted. We were able to use it as a tool for cost effectiveness, for time effectiveness, for just making the scene. I personally feel very lucky to have been able to participate on these 3 movies, because they really give you a palette and a chance to do work that I love doing.